All right, welcome everybody to Turn 2 with Scott and Troy. I have the luxury of having an awesome guest with us today. I have been trying to track him down to get him on a podcast for about 6 months now, but we have the awesome Daren Brown, the manager of the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. Daren, thank you so much for coming on to the pod. I have a lot of different nicknames for you. We got 40, Brownie, Daren Brown. I rarely call you Daren, so sometimes I forget that that's your first name.
It
But
it is. I don't get called that much, but it is.
But I'm really excited to have you on today. I know our fans and our listeners, we see you on the field. You're making all the key decisions. You have a long line of managing. You've been a lot of different places. You've been all over the country. You started managing when you were 33 years old after your playing days. You played indie baseball, which I thought was one of the most interesting things I saw. You played indie baseball in Amarillo. By the way, he says Amarilla, not Amarillo, like us Westerners.
Yeah, if you're from there, it's Amarillo. If you're not, it's Amarillo.
But talk us through a little bit of your stage of transitioning from playing to getting into the coaching stage. And I've been with you for about 3 years now, so I've only seen you in that coaching stage. Talk us through a little bit of how you got into that.
Yeah, it was. Obviously I pitched. Was drafted out of college. Went to the Toronto Blue Jays organization. Pitched for 4 or 5 years. Got to Double A and got released. Went home to Oklahoma and got a call to go out in Amarillo and play for an independent league. That's back when they kind of started those up to where it's giving guys another opportunity to possibly get back into an organization. Pitched there for 3 years, and then they asked me if I had any interest in managing, which I'd never thought about it. I had a dad that pitched in the big leagues, an uncle that pitched and coached in the big leagues. So I kind of thought I'd probably be the pitching coach, kind of head that way. But I told him it'd be something I'd be interested in. I got along with all the players that we were bringing back, so got into managing. Did it for 3 years there in independent ball. Uh, Really, the first year was probably the most interesting because I actually pitched and managed. So every fourth day I was the starting pitcher. Had somebody else that coached third base for me that game, but I gave them signs as the game was going on. I also had a sign for one of our other pitchers when it was time to get somebody rolling in the bullpen. So it was a little bit different, but woke up one morning and had a hard time shampooing my hair, which was an elbow issue. So had surgery like a week later, and since then just stayed managing. Uh, was offered a job with Seattle in 2001 to start managing there in their system. Spent 20 years with them from A ball to all the way to the big leagues as a big league manager for 50 games. So let go there during COVID and been here 3 years. So it's been, like you said, it's Midwest League, Cal League, Pacific Coast League, uh, International League now. So it's kind of all over the country, but obviously it's something I enjoy. I enjoy the camaraderie in the clubhouse and trying to bring a group of kids together every summer. And it's always can be challenging at times, but it's also something I enjoy.
So you talked about being a player and a manager. That's one of the more interesting things that I've seen because for me, I've only seen it in movies. I've never actually been a part of something like that. As the manager part, did you ever get into it with players when they weren't? Because of course, when we mess up here or there on the field, you'll pull us aside, you'll talk to us. It's very professional. There's one time you gave me a look, and I'm like, "Yep, I got it. I know I messed up. Thank you. I will try to do better." But when you were playing and managing, like let's say you gave up a couple home runs or a couple hits, and you're like, catcher, you're calling the wrong pitches. You're out of here. I'm trading you with somebody else.
No, I've never been that way, and you guys have been. I'm not one to point fingers. I'm one to look at how do we need to move forward, fix what needs to be fixed, and move forward. I think it's too easy to come in after a pitcher's given up 9, 10 runs and you're ready to air out the whole team when it's obvious you're probably talking to one guy that maybe didn't come prepared. I just never have felt like that's the right way to go about it. I think I kind of fall under the adage, when you point a finger, there's actually three others pointing back at you. And that for me is, I never have been the one to point fingers. I just feel like it's fix what needs to be fixed and move on so it doesn't happen again.
And I feel like you've done a really good job over the last 3 years of letting the players go play. And then when things come up, we talk about it, especially as a group. I really appreciate that. What you've done is talk about it with a group, making sure everybody understands it. Yes, we do understand that when something happens, we know who did it, and maybe if it was, but moving forward from that as a team so every individual player and the team can get better. I've really appreciated that as a manager.
I do feel like anytime something comes up in a game, you look at certain things that you can see happening to somebody else that I think you probably hate the fact that it happened to whoever it is, but somebody else can learn from that, and I think then it's important that you talk about it as a group, just to try to keep it from happening to somebody else. And I've always felt like that's important. From managing an A ball to AAA to the big leagues, I don't think it matters what level. There's things that happen that I think if you address them, you can always bring one guy in, but there are certain things that happen that somebody else is going to be in that same situation probably in the next week, 2 weeks, or sometime in this year that I think they can benefit from the whole group hearing it, that maybe we keep it from happening again.
Yep, like popping up a bunt to the pitcher with first and second, right?
Yeah, I believe I've seen that.
We talk about that one quite a bit.
I've seen that. I'm not real sure when that was in Omaha back in May, but yes, I do remember that happening.
So all these levels of baseball, indie ball, I think is fascinating because you were playing, you were managing, and I think you did like sponsorship sales as well, if I'm
Correct.
not mistaken. So how did you balance all of that with, this is your passion, obviously pitching, managing, coaching, the sales stuff on the side? I mean, what did you do to kind of manage that and make sure that it was a successful business operation to stay employed there?
Well, the sales part of it, and that was done mostly when the season was over. It was like a wintertime thing, selling outfield signs, radio ads, season tickets, sponsorships, from Sonic Drive-In to beer deals. It was I enjoyed the people there. They knew who I was, and I enjoyed going in and trying to. I feel like anytime you're in that type situation, you're trying to get them to understand you're wanting to do something to help them, and in turn they're going to help you. And that was kind of the way I went at it. But once the season started, or really actually for independent ball, once you started kind of lining up the players that you wanted to come in, a lot of that part I kind of pushed off to other people. I would still know when it's a big night for like Sonic's coming out with their group. I would still make an effort to go over and talk to those people, because I'm going to talk to them again, as soon as the season's over. But I enjoyed it. It let me see a different side of baseball that I hadn't been involved in. But at the same time, I didn't feel the same way I do walking into a clubhouse or walking out on the field trying to get a group of guys ready to go at 7:05 tonight.
What is the difference, you would say, from managing the big leagues, which you have done, AAA, where there's older guys and younger guys, and A-ball, where it's exclusively younger guys, and obviously indie ball, where you've got guys who really just truly love the game, looking to find a way back into affiliated ball at any cost?
Well, the independent ball back then was about trying to give guys not just an opportunity to get back into an organization. That's what I mean, I had 4 starters. I didn't have 5, and they knew coming in they were going to pitch. I only had 10 players, maybe 11 players at most, obviously one of them being the extra catcher. And I had a list of guys that I would bring in. So we traveled, with 22, 23 guys, because you had a salary cap you had to stay under. But I also wanted guys, when they came in there, you're going to play, because I know you don't want to be here. So we'll give you all the opportunity to do something to get to an affiliate organization. When you start talking about in the minor leagues, At the big leagues, obviously, it's you're trying to win every night. Uh, I know in today's game, sometimes you may not be built to do that. You're looking down the road to the future, which you have to do too. It may be take some lumps, just simply because you're playing some younger guys that are going to help you in the next 2 or 3 years. Which, to be honest, you get down to AAA and the minor leagues. We know the guys are going to play. We know the prospects that are going to play. I do think you have to teach them how to win. At the same time, at bats, innings pitched, games played, all that matters because that's where you see the guy get better. The more games he plays, put him in as many situations as you can. I think that's where you're more apt to see a kid really develop into what he's going to be, hopefully, which is a major league player.
And then in A-ball, how do you deal with like youth because they're at times still learning the game? I would think as well.
They are. To me, that's teaching them how to play the game a little bit, but also. And I understand today in today's game, let the kids play, and I understand all that, but I still think there's some things that, that you don't want to worry about the kids off the field as well as on the field. There's just things that hopefully you're helping them to be a better person. I've always felt like sometimes that gets missed because at some point baseball will not be there. And you want these to be somebody that can step in, and they're going to be somebody that whatever job, whatever they decide to do at that time, that they're going to be somebody that you can count on at whatever job that they do. And I think that's something that sometimes gets missed. I mean, I know at AAA we see guys that start having families, married. That's what you start seeing more the higher up you go. That's all life-changing things that happen to guys, and that stuff's important to me. My family's important to me. I've said before, baseball's not who I am. It's what I do, but it's not who I am, and I kind of live by that. Family's important. Mom and dad's important. All those things are really important to me, and hopefully through the course of developing players on the baseball side, you're teaching them to be better people down the road.
Yeah. So we talk about a lot. Your family is very important to you. A little tidbit about you is your daughter is big into volleyball. Which did you ever see yourself practicing as much volleyball and working on volleyball as much as you thought when you were starting a family and going through all that?
I know absolutely nothing about it, and I know what it looks like when she hits it really hard because there's actually a lot of similarities between throwing a baseball and hitting a baseball. The same thing of hitting a volleyball. There's some similarities with timing and going up and all that kind of stuff. But no, I'm just glad, she plays basketball as well. I just want to give her the opportunity to find out. I don't know what sport she'll end up wanting to play. I know volleyball and basketball. I think she likes them both. Probably enjoys volleyball a little bit more right now. That could change in the next couple of years. I just think she also runs track. I know nothing about track. Don't really care to run a whole lot. So it becomes, she's. I just think sometimes today, and I know today it's a lot of taking one sport and that's all they do is work on that. And I'm more about her being a good athlete, doing a bunch of sports, being athletic, and then we'll figure out the next 4 or 5 years what she feels like she needs to do.
Well, and I know in 22, when I first came up and introduced myself to you, I think it was in spring training. I said, hey, Mr. Brown, I'm from Tacoma, saw you were managing in Tacoma and all this kind of stuff. From a small town in Puyallup, not so small anymore. But walk us through a little bit and I do have to give you a compliment. You've been very professional so far. I was expecting a lot more sarcasm. And I thought I was going to have to sift through a lot of stuff. I was going to be laughing the whole time, but you're keeping it professional.
Yeah, we're not done yet.
Ooh.
We got past 3 minutes. That was big.
We got past the 3 minutes. He hasn't got the call saying, "Oh, I got something to do yet." But walk us through kind of your time in Tacoma and Seattle, because of course that was a big part of your managing career. You were there for about 10 years.
Right.
Talk us through being in the Pacific Northwest and down here in Jacksonville, Florida. It's very different.
Yes.
Very different from especially coaching in the PCL and just living up in the Northwest.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed my time up there. Obviously, the weather, once you get past April and May, everybody would want to come there. April and May was always a pain. Uh, if you're in Seattle, you have a roof to cover you. In Tacoma, we do not.
Yes.
And it becomes rain, worried about rain every day. I know I used to tell the groundskeeper, he could tell me, this is as hard as it's going to get. And if that was it, we're going to have to play, because if you waited till it stopped raining, there'd be weeks we wouldn't start.
Yep.
So played a lot of games in a little bit of a light rain, mist, whatever you want to call it. That was April and May. June, July, and August, September, everybody would want to come up there because it's in the 70s every day. It's nice. I did like waking up every morning and looking out and seeing Mount Rainier. Which you probably know the joke up there. If you can see Mount Rainier, it's going to rain. If you can't see Mount Rainier, it's going to rain. That's pretty much the joke there
Yep.
in that area. But I enjoyed it there. The weather was good. We had a couple of really good sometimes that I know for me managing that I'll always remember, and it actually involves some guys that you've seen here on the other side. Matt Tuiasosopo managed Gwinnett last year, third base coach for the Braves now, was part of one of the teams there where we went into the last day of the season a half game back of the team that we're playing. So comes down to the last day of the season, nobody could get flights because we didn't know what we were doing. We actually went into the eighth inning, 0-0, and then we scored 8 in the bottom of the 8th, so we had a good time in the top of the 9th. But they didn't have us any flights to do anything. We ended up chartering a flight to go to Sacramento, 50 passenger jet with couldn't get all of our equipment in the bottom of the luggage compartment, so we had equipment bags up top with us sitting in seats. So it was kind of it's a cool thing, but to go to that's really the only time I've went down to the last day of the season with a chance to do something. It was kind of a fun thing to be a part of. That was in 09. So in 2010, won the PCL there. I wasn't there to witness it. I left 1st August to go manage the big league club. We had a pretty good club in Tacoma. Thought that had a chance to win, and they went ahead and got it done. So, but I enjoyed my time up there.
Being in Seattle and going from being a AAA coach to a big league coach, you always see the press conferences. Like, you don't really have to do press conferences after games here in AAA, but in the big leagues, you got to talk to the press after every single game. What's
and
that
before.
like? And before the game,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Like, there's a lot more responsibility up there, especially
I
even being an interim.
I can tell you, for me, that it gave me a different perspective, even managing in AAA, of the understanding of what a major league manager goes through. And I've said that to Skip here. I may call or I may text, and I know he may not be able to get back to me because I know what I felt when you walk into the ballpark that day. You feel like you got a coaching staff that needs you. You got players that might need you. You got media that might need you. You got front office people that might come down and need you. So there's like your time is being pulled in a lot of different directions. But just like you had the first one of the day at 3:30, 4 o'clock before you take BP. Then of course after the game, it's always which in Seattle when I was there, they had a really good PR media person that would come in after games and kind of give me a heads up on anything that might be brought up. Obviously game stuff. I watched the game. I know what might be brought up. At the big league level, they probably they got a chance to question anything. But I've always felt like we don't have a whole lot of time to make decisions in the dugout, whether to play infield in, whether to play no doubles, whether to play all this stuff. We have to do it, and we have to do it where players try to get them in a position to succeed. And I know you've heard me talk about it before, trying to play to win, not to keep from losing. I think that's two different things. We had the situation come up last night when it's a 3-2 game, runners at second and third and one out. You can play back and let them tie it, or you can play for the win. And, obviously last night with Alvarado on the mound, I brought the infield in and chose to win the game. I know what happens if they sneak a ground ball through the infield. I may wish I'd be back. I would have been back. They tie it, and we get to hit in the bottom of the ninth. But I think sometimes you just have to. Players need to be clear. We're playing to win. I felt like at that time we're playing to win. But like you said, those type things in the big leagues, you're going to be asked about it. Just like if a ground ball had trickled through last night, we got beat 4-3, you're going to sit down in front of them and they're going to ask you, why didn't you play back? And you get to hit in the bottom of the ninth. Those are things we don't have to answer here in AAA, but in the big leagues, you'd answer them. But I never had a problem with that. This is what I felt. I felt like we were trying to win the game right there. If somebody else wants to question it, that's their opinion. They're not sitting in the dugout. I had to make the decision. It's easy to sit back after something's happened and say, this is what I would have done. We don't have that luxury sitting in the dugout.
Well, good thing we didn't give him any questions before. He would have been really straightforward.
This
This
is
is all off the cusp.
It's great material for the broadcast tonight. I don't have to ask you why you played the infield in yesterday. That is so we were in Omaha. You told me this great story that was where you got the call that you were going to Seattle in 2010, I believe it was, not 2013. And what do you do as the interim manager? It's August 1st. You weren't even in Seattle. All of a sudden, you're in charge. What did you do? What did you say to the people there?
Yeah, there's an interesting story to that I think is kind of cool. But Chris Woodward was our shortstop. He's become the Texas Rangers manager and a lot of stuff in the last. He got let go by him last year, or year before. But he was our shortstop at the time, and I actually got thrown out of the game in the top of the 10th. So I go in, and I'm sitting and my phone rings. And it was the GM in Seattle, and we were going to take Chris Woodward was going to the big leagues, so I didn't need to let him know after the game. Our shortstop, Jack Wilson, at the time had gotten hurt. So said I got it, and he said, I also need you to call me back when your game's done, and we need to talk about something else. So the game gets over. I call him back. He wants to know where I'm at. I'm in the clubhouse, which the clubhouse in this is Rosenblatt Stadium where they play the College World Series, used to play it. So the coach's room is all together, and he wants to talk, but he wants to know who's around. I said, well, the coaches are all in here. Well, I need you to call me from somewhere else. And that's when I kind of I don't understand what's going on here. So I went out and sat in the bullpen in Rosenblatt, and that's when he told me that I was going to be coming to Seattle the next day. It's going to be named interim. Needed to keep everything quiet from your staff, everything there, just because they were letting guys know the next day. So I flew out the next morning. I actually went back in, told Chris Wilbur he's going to the big leagues the next day. Congratulate him. Good luck. Go get him. We get in the car, head back to the hotel. Of course, my trainer at the time, hey, what time you want to leave tomorrow? I said, same as every day, whatever y'all want to do. I couldn't tell them. Wow. I wasn't going to be in the car. So flew to Seattle early the next morning. Had to sit in the hotel across the street till they called and told me it was time to come over. Went over about 2:30. And the interesting part of that was I just told Chris Woodward, good luck. Go get him, and then at 3 o'clock he comes walking in. I told him welcome, and that I know that probably hasn't happened very often to very many guys, but it was kind of a cool story. But then you walk into a place. I know the one thing thinking about what are you going to say to a group of guys that at that point we've been playing really well in AAA, and the clubhouse felt like it was a good clubhouse, and then you walk into a clubhouse that's 30 games under 500. At that time, it was a different vibe for me. And I pretty much, the first meeting we had, if things had been going really well, I wouldn't be here. So if some things change or some things change that the way you're being used player-wise, pitching-wise, whatever it is, then you have to understand why. because we are going to try to finish this out and do what we can to finish out the year. Wasn't an easy situation. I mean, obviously it's just something you're trying to make guys keep playing, push guys keep playing. They are playing. It's their careers. They are playing for next year at some point. But they also get an opportunity for a month, 50 games or whatever, to show us what they can do. We played a lot of younger guys at the time. But it was a good experience for me. But I do know it was a tough situation to walk into.
Was that getting into this when you started in Amarillo all those years ago? Was that the goal was to eventually be like a big league manager, or you just have let this play out and see where things have happened?
I think anytime, when you start coaching, that is at the top of our profession, to coach in the big leagues, manage in the big leagues. I do feel like I enjoyed it, mainly just looking at how do we win today, using what we have, and that's basically what you have to look at. This is the personnel we have. How can we put them in the best spot to be successful today? And whether it's I feel like that's at the big league level. You're putting together a lineup to win every night. You're using pitchers. I know you see it here. We'll throw guys back to back occasionally. We don't do it a whole lot, but you got guys in the big leagues. That's what they're getting paid to do. You're going to use them more than probably what we'd use them here. But that's just part of, for me, that's a part of development in the minor leagues. You want to keep them fresh. You want to keep them moving forward. Then when they get to the big leagues, you want them to be a guy. If you're a guy, you're going to pitch a lot because that's what they need. They need in order to win games, and that's what I enjoyed a lot. At the big league level, that's what it was looking. I mean, everybody wants to win, but at the big league level, there's nothing probably. I did have an older guy tell me, John Bowles, who has some ties with the Marlins a long time ago. He just said that winning a Major League Baseball game is one of the hardest things to do. No matter who you're playing, you have to remember there's a Major League team on the other side, and that goes record-wise. Doesn't really matter. There's big leaguers playing on the other side. So, and I understand after doing it for that short time that he was right. It's not, no matter who you're playing, you can play a team that's 50 games under 500. They can beat you that night. They got big leaguers on the other side. So it's something that I hadn't forgot.
When you started this in '01 in San Bernardino, California, versus 2024, so much has changed about just the game in general, the technology, the way players are treated, I think in a much more positive direction in that regard. How has that helped you become a better manager, and what did you do to kind of adapt to all the new things that have come along the way in your journey?
Well, I think we have more things today to help players get better, from technology, from physical strength conditioning. We have more things to help a player get better, get stronger. It's just a matter of making sure, I feel like, making sure we're hitting on the right things that's going to help. And I don't think it can be a cookie cutter, do the same thing for every player. I feel like, you touched on a little bit. I used to worry about where players were staying, where their apartments, or are they, who's staying with who. And then in today's game, they're kind of taking care of where they live. Organizations are doing a really good job of taking care of them pretty much from the time they come in. This is where they're going to stay. These are your roommates. So I think Major League Baseball has done a much better job at taking care of players. We used to getting paid whatever, $1,900, $2,000 a month, and paying $1,000 in rent. That's what we had to deal with. Meal money wasn't as much as what they get today, and we made do. It was just part of it because we understood the light at the end of the tunnel if we got there. It was all about, if you get to the big leagues, you'll be all right. Even though we know that doesn't happen with everybody. But I do feel like it's adjust. It's always an adjustment. I think we have more things today to help players. I'm fine with that. I think it's just a matter of using them in the right ways with the right players and still getting them headed, hopefully, to be better everyday major league players. I know Troy's heard that before. We do talk about it's not about just sending you up to the big leagues for 3 or 4 days. We try to help them that when you go, you have a chance to stay, and because staying is the hard part.
I have one more question for you, sort of on that vein. Getting better, it's easier to do that now. The other side of that is like technology also can be construed maybe as a bad thing because in the 2001, everyone's riding the bus together. There's no cell phones or people are just on their phone. They're hanging out with each other. As a manager, I'm sure you'd want to see guys kind of hanging out together. Is it more difficult to see sometimes clubhouses? This is going back even to Myrtle Beach when I was there, where guys are just on their phone all the time and not interacting with each other.
Well, they are, and I think that's just. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and I get
Yeah.
on her all the time about being on the phone. That's kind of the society today. Uh, I know it's important to some. I mean, we talk about the technology thing. I also know the first 8-9 years, I didn't get to see my wife during the year unless she came to see me, and now we have FaceTime. We have different things that we can actually see them. So there's things that make it easier. At the same time, I understand what you're saying. I could go in the clubhouse right now, and there's probably going to be 10 to 15 guys sitting in front of their locker with their phone. I think that's just the way it is today. I do feel like we do have a younger group for a AAA clubhouse. I don't feel like it's. I never feel like you have to have like a bunch of camaraderie. I do want them to play well and play together on the field. That doesn't mean you have to leave the field and everybody hang out together all the time. I've never felt that way, but I do feel we need to be a team on the field. I think you can build that in other ways, but it is something that I don't think that's going to go away. But if you can do some things through technology, through phones, I don't think it's ever going to stop guys getting on their phone. I mean, I do it myself, looking at Instagram or whatever. I
Checking
know that
the Turn
surprised
2
you.
Instagram account.
Checking the Turn 2 podcast to see who they had on and what they talked about, and see if my name came up in a bad way. But I just don't think that's going to go away. I think, like I said, for me, going out into the dugout, stepping between the lines, playing together as a team there, appreciating what each other does on the field, celebrating when there needs to be celebrating. I also feel like it's important to, I would say, step back and actually take account of what happened. Sometimes when you lose, we need to take a step back and why did this happen? I know Troy's been there when I asked these guys before a certain situation. I want to see how they see the game. Because there's things I can sit in the dugout and know what I want everybody to do, and this is where I'd like for you to be, and I'd like for you to react this way. But the fact of it is, I'm not playing the game. So I want to know how they see the game. How did they see the game the night before? Because I think that's important moving forward to actually get how they are seeing it. And then maybe I can help them see it in a different way if I think we need to be looking at it a little different.
Awesome.
Darren, thank you very, very much.
Yes, you've had. I do want to thank you. You've had a very positive impact on me the last 3 years. Thank you for helping me out and being our manager and everything like that. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was like I said, it was like pulling teeth for a bit, but I told him. He said he wanted to do it on Monday when everybody left.
Where's my $500?
Scott will Venmo.
Everybody.
Scott will Venmo you. Don't worry, Scott will Venmo you.
I do appreciate you, Troy, for how you go about your business. I know it's not always easy. I know that I've said this to you before with the year you had last year, an outstanding year. The year you put together this year, it's just a matter, and I know, we'd like to sit here and talk about hopefully at some point a major league call-up because I think that's on the horizon for you. It's just a matter you put the time in, put the work in, being in the right spot at the right time. But I appreciate guys that go about their business. I know when you first got here a couple of years ago, it didn't go very well. Went back to Double A, got off to a really good start. Came here, and I remember telling you when you first got here, the first week, you were different, and that was a good thing. And you've done nothing but just continue to stay on that. So hopefully, good things are in the future for you.
Well, thank you very much. We also have another big leaguer over there, so.
Yes, correct.
He didn't manage
Correct.
me though. So.
No.
But I will say, every media request, without question, he always easily does it, and that's all you could ask for as the media guy.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
Yep,
You're welcome.
That has been Daren Brown. Thank you so much for listening. Guys, this is the conclusion of Season 1, our 2024 inaugural season here at Turn 2 with Scott and Troy. You can catch us wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Make sure to check us out, like and follow on Instagram, TikTok, anywhere that you get social media. Thank you so much this year for listening. We've had a great following, and we appreciate everything that the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp have given us the opportunity to do.
Thank you, guys. Talk to you in the new year.